Okay, so this evening, it's not going to be one of our interactive sessions. That will be in another part that follows this, which I'll talk about at the end. My name is David Homer, and I'm a doctor of naturopathic medicine. And I have a particular brand that I promote, that I teach. It's called Whole Living. And Whole Living is essentially a lifestyle model um, that's that promotes inner transformation, personal growth and development. And it's based on a lifestyle model uh, that recognizes a pathway that has a specific process based on time-tested principles of how we can cultivate the true essence of our being so that we can become our very best. We can be able to live the lives that we truly desire. We can maximize life in every area and on every level. This evening, the topic that we're going to be speaking about is understanding true health. And why I phrased it true health is because the understanding that we have been given about health is in a very narrow context, and it does not afford us the understanding that we need to have in order to live a truly healthy life and to be able to live even a disease-free life. So that's what we're going to be looking at this evening. And I'm going to begin by looking at the definition of health that's given to us by the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization says that health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. I inserted the word spiritual because it's not really complete without that. And so the first truth that I would like to highlight in this definition is that health is not the absence of disease or infirmity. And the reason why that's very important is because in my 25 years of clinical practice, I think it is fair to say that we have been conditioned to think of health in such a way that if we do not feel sick, we think that we're healthy. And that is a very dangerous way to look at it, because if we think that we're healthy simply because there are no symptoms of illness, we will not likely engage in the responsibilities that we ought to as it pertains to true healthy living. And that will lead us down the road to illness one day. The other thing I would like to highlight regarding health is that in this definition, which is true apart from the not including spiritual, is that health is a state of being that is complete. And that complete state is physical, mental, spiritual, and social well-being. If we were to really consider this definition, we would see that health is every aspect of our lives. And so we're going to be looking at understanding health as it relates to healing. And so our focus this evening is going to be towards our physical wellness. We're going to be looking at that in the context of that, how it pertains to a complete state of being relative to our whole life. I also, let me just qualify before we move on, that when I say spiritual, I am not necessarily referring to any particular religious system of belief, although that can find context within this. When I say spiritual, I am pertaining to the human design. All of us are spiritual beings, and most people would agree to that, even though we may not fully understand how to conceptually understand that or how to appropriate that into the reality of our experiential day-to-day living. But when I say spiritual, I am speaking this evening in the context of understanding it's part of our human makeup that gives us an ability to function in such a way that is beyond the ordinary. When I say spiritual, there is a part of our human makeup that allows us to be able to tap into a paradigm of reality that is that transcends the ordinary, and we are able to connect into deeper truths and deeper understandings of life that is beyond what is observable. So when I speak about the spiritual aspect of who we are, it is not so much pertaining to a religious or belief system as much as it's pertaining to the human makeup that that recognizes a functional capacity that every human being has. It's important for us to understand that life is more than just our routine existence of demands and obligations and achievements and so on. Life is deeper than that. And for us to be able to tap in to those deeper truths that really define a quality of life that we can have beyond what we could may even imagine, it requires recognizing and being able to tap in to the aspect of our human design that is spiritual. So I hope you understand the context in which I'm saying. Before we move on, I'd like to just ask a question. If, and this is not for you to necessarily consider now, perhaps after the session, if it were up to you, if you could design your ideal life, if you can create it the way you would prefer it to be, without any limitations, without any restrictions, what would that ideal life look like? What would you become? What would you create? What would that experience be like for you if you, without any limitations or restrictions, can create your ideal life? I ask that because I want you to know that what we're going to be speaking about introduces a pathway of a process that affords us to be able to create exactly that. That's not any exaggeration. Our lives can be exactly the way we prefer it to be because it's within our capacity, our divine design to be able to do so. We will get an understanding of how that works. What we won't get this evening, but it comes out in the workshops that we have upcoming, is the rudiments of the practical daily application that unfolds the journey that gets us there. But we will get a good overview of that tonight. And so I want us to know that when it comes to health and healing, that's just one aspect of, of the life that we would want to create where we can live free of disease. So if you're on the call, you came here on the call because you're perhaps hoping to hear something that would make a difference in a positive way to your life, whether it is that maybe you're dealing with an illness and that you want to overcome and you're looking for solutions, but whether it is that, whether it is you're looking to be a better parent, a better spouse, a better leader, a better entrepreneur, whether you want to be successful at business, you want to improve your relationships, you're looking for financial prosperity, I want you to know that what we're going to be speaking about encompasses every aspect of that. Our focus is going to be on our physical well-being this evening. So, having said that, there is a famous quote that you may be familiar with. It was made by a 15th century Scottish knight. And he said, everyone dies, but not everyone lives. And sadly, that is true for many, if not most of us on this planet, that we go about living in such a way that we are not intentional and consciously aware of moment by moment living that we can actually create the lives we prefer. I want to say to everyone on this call tonight, if we will step back and take a breath and understand and explore the truth and the reality of who we are, we can create the life we so desire. As it pertains to this evening, if you're dealing with an illness in your body, or you just want to improve and you want to live a disease free life, you're going to find that here as well. So, as we explore looking at true understanding, true health and healing, understand that improving our health is indeed the most significant investment we could ever make. Why? Because it encompasses every aspect of our lives. Physically becoming physically strong, mentally clear, emotionally stable, spiritually aligned, socially connected, and financially empowered. So when we're talking about our life, there are two aspects of it that we really want to make sure that we can get a handle on, and that is quality of life, which is internal, and standard of living, which is external. The quality of life pertains to one to four, our physical, mental, spirit, emotional, and spiritual well-being. When that is in order, our standard of living, our relationships and social connections, and our financial empowerment falls in line so much easier. What I would like to point out here is that our being financially empowered is something that the world chases after, and with good reason. If you go on the internet today, a lot of things are about how to be involved in X, Y, and Z, and how to become wealthy, how to become millionaires. The drive is to become more financially empowered. And that's okay. I am one all for wealth because it positions us to make different types of choices. How we may go about getting wealth is another story. However, what I want to draw to our attention is that the external reality of our life, because of this material world that we live in, it is upheld by the framework of economics. And so being financially empowered is very important. And I like to look at it as the external equivalent to our internal balance. When externally in our lives we are financially deficient, it has a serious impact on how we may be able to navigate life effectively. In the same way that when our internal well being, physically, mentally, and spiritually, is not in proper alignment, it affects the outside. They both are mutually supportive. The bridge between our inner and outer life, or the quality of life and standard of living, the bridge between that is our relationships, our socially connected lives. And when internally and externally is not properly aligned, our relationships pays the price for it. And that is what we are seeing around the world today. And so this is why it's important that when we cultivate health, true health, which is the wholeness of our lives, when we understand the wholeness of health and we learn how to cultivate it, our life is going to flourish on every level. And so that's what we are looking at, in that we can enjoy quality of life and standard of living in ways that we so desire. I clearly understand that we could have quality of life, meaning that we could have a lot of peace, joy, and gratitude, and full of wonder in our lives, but we may not be materially in the best position, but we still have a good quality of life, and that's wonderful. On the other hand, we could have an elaborate or an affluent standard of living and be very miserable on the inside. Our ideal world is that we want to have a good quality of life and a good standard of living. That includes, based on our topic this evening, living a disease free life. And so, because we have not fully understood this, because we have not understood that true health is the full expression of our life, rooted in a clear awareness of self, a clear awareness of who we really are, because this has not been how we understood it and what we were taught, and because we think that health is just about the body, how it feels and functions, has led us to a global pandemic that is overtaking the world. The World Health Organization calls it the global burden of disease, whereby it is rampant across every country. 60% of adults have a lifestyle disease, and this accounts for 74% of all the deaths worldwide. Lifestyle diseases are the number one cause of death, more than wars, accidents, and violence combined together. An annual mortality rate of 50 million. When we had the COVID pandemic a few years back, and people were all up in fears and concerns about it, in the 2 years of it, it took 20 million lives. This is 50 million every year, but we think hardly anything about it because of our very conditioning of how we think. There's a reason why we're thinking that way. More than 70% increase in prescription drugs as a result, and that's old statistics. It has become more, and this is the third leading cause of death. The third leading cause of death is what they call iatrogenic disease, which is disease that's caused from medical treatments. You can look it up. Mental health disorders are becoming rampant on our planet. And that's a concern because our minds is what we navigate this life by. And so poor mental and physical health together, they're accelerating aging and reducing health span. Now, we've come to the point where many people think that this is normal, that as we age, it is normal to develop a lifestyle disease. This is so ingrained in our thinking that by virtue of that alone, it's likely to happen. If you went onto the World Health Organization website, two things that I found very interesting was that they said that these statistics are projected to get worse in the next decade. I found that interesting because we are living in an information age with technology and AI. We have better know-how. We have a better understanding of disease. We have a greater doctor to patient ratio. We have more facilities, yet it's expected to get worse. Something evidently is wrong in the way we are approaching this. And on the website, they also had that the greatest risk factor for this getting worse is aging. I found that very interesting because aging is not a defect of the human design. It's a natural process of life. But because of this thing called aging, it is the greatest risk for developing lifestyle disease. Again, that's just speaking to the fact of the narrow context in how we understand what health is. In other words, even the way we approach it in practical reality of life is not consistent with their very definition that health is a complete state of being. But aging, we will age. It's not the aging that's the risk factor, it is how we may age, because we can age in a very healthy manner. A phenomenon that they call today, they call it health span, which is aging but remaining healthy as we age. And so, yes, that could happen. And so, what develops in the human body as chronic disease is not the problem. The world or the healthcare system or every institution that talks about or approaches this dilemma, this pandemic, it approaches disease as the problem. And as long as we focus on disease as the problem and not recognize that it's just an outcome of a problem, our approach will always be deficient. And so we will continue to spend billions of dollars in research and continue to have an approach that will not get us to the solutions. This evening, you're going to get a solution that is infallible, not easy to attain, but attainable nonetheless. And it's all up to you and I whether we will engage the process. And so, if disease is not the problem, what is? We're going to get to that. And this is the context of what we're going to be talking about this evening. Thomas Edison, a famous American inventor, made a quote. In the 1800s, he said, "The doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease." I want to highlight will give no medicine and the cause and prevention of disease. Can you imagine there being treatments without medicine? You see, our understanding of what health and what disease is that how could you be sick, but there be no, but and have treatments without medicine? Oh yes, we are actually living in those times. We've been in those times, but the age that we're of technology that we're in now, surely we're in those times. But the end of it, which is the cause and prevention of disease, this is what we're going to be looking at. The cause and the prevention, and within that equation is recovery from any condition at all. And so that's what we'll be focusing on as we unfold the process this evening. I also want to highlight that Edison in the 1800s, he created a technology that changed the world. We all use it today, and we all know it. It's the light bulb. Imagine that when he created this technology, it was such a significant paradigm shift to what the world was accustomed to for lighting up rooms, that even though it was such a significant change, it took more than a generation for it to be culturally accepted. And the history says it's because it was perceived as just another form of the same thing. I am saying this, pointing this out for two reasons. One, we're looking at health in a context that is not what is the norm of what is taught to us how we understand health. Health is wholeness. Health is every aspect of our life. So that if tomorrow, God forbid, any of us were to be diagnosed with a life-threatening condition, our minds will automatically default to body, to treatment. We will not think of all the other areas of our lives and how we've been living in those and how it would have contributed. We will just think medicine, how to fix the body, and not necessarily how to fix every other aspect that might not have been aligned. And so we're not going to automatically just, it's going to be a condition, it's a paradigm shift in our thinking that when we think about health and living healthy, or if we have an illness and we want about complete recovery from it, that we must think within the context of our whole life and not just feeding the body right and all the physical aspects of it. That's just one area that constituted for what developed within the body. So, and it will take us a little while for us to shift our thinking to that. The other thing that I want, the reason why I want to bring this up is that I'm going to talk in a little while about a technology that can help us to be able to live a more effective life. This technology falls within understanding the cause and the prevention of disease. It also has, it is no medicine. It has no ingredients, no substances, it's no pills, it's no external frequencies, it's no equipment, it's no tech, it has none of that, but it is a complete medicineless way that supports what exists within the human design for us to function at a more optimal level. We need that today because technology has brought us to a place where we are more efficient at detecting, at monitoring, at being able to influence change within our biologies. So we are in a technological age, and because of the world that we live in today, the environments that we are faced with, the quality of food, of how food is prepared, we are living in a world where we do need that aid and assistance. And so I'm going to talk about a technology that involves no medicine, no equipment, no ingredients of any type, that harnesses what we possess to help us to be able to live at our highest level. And that's what we'll be doing. No medicine is needed in the future of this because healing is really by design. In healthcare or in medicine, in science, We understand what is called innate healing. Innate healing is the creative flow of life that's woven into the human design. It's not something that's a part of it, it is actually woven into the very design of how we are made up. Is this healing mechanism? It's part of the built-in wisdom and intelligence that runs our bodies, that's running it right now. We have trillions of functions happening in trillions of cells every second, and none of it we're consciously involved in. It's happening and driven all automatically. That creative potential that is remaking our bodies every 7 years. We have a new layer of skin every month, a new liver in 7 years. In a few hours, all the atoms in our bodies is going to start to change. Our body is constantly in a flux of growth, development, and creative unfolding that never stops. It's not just a cut that you get and it just heals on its own, or it's not just you cut your hair and it's going to start to grow back. It's not just the bone that we break and the doctor can only set it, but it begins to mend on its own. Built in to the very design, woven into our design, is this creative flow of life that is the healing response. There is a phenomenon in medicine, it's called spontaneous healing. Spontaneous healing is when people, and there are tens of thousands of cases documented around the world over the years, where people are diagnosed with terminal and life-threatening conditions to which there's no medical cure. And without any specific type of treatment, they completely recover. And we're talking about all terminal type conditions. People that have tumors in their brain, tumors in their bodies, terminal ends of cancer, and different types of degenerative conditions to which there's no cure, and people they call it spontaneous because they don't have a cause for it. There's an interesting book for those who may want to research that further by Dr. Jeffrey Rittiger. You can Google that. He's a Harvard professor. He wrote a book called Cured. And in that book, he has studied for the last 20 years cases of spontaneous remission, as it's called in medicine, to determine what it is that's the common threads that run through all these cases, which he's had in his own clinic, people that have gone through that, what it is, what are the common threads that people tap into that bring them out of their condition. And what I found very interesting, I'm not going to get into that, but it's a good thing he has. You can get some of his videos on YouTube and so on. The interesting thing that struck me, which aligned with our very whole living concept, is that he said the number one pillar, he listed 4 pillars, and he said the number one pillar that runs through the thread as to what brings these people to this place of spontaneous healing is this sense of identity. What an interesting thing. It falls completely outside of the framework of traditional healthcare. But spontaneous healing arises when that inner harmony fully awakens that flow that's woven into our very makeup. So if a person says, well, if this is true, I have this condition or that condition and it's not going away, the flow of life that's woven into our makeup, it will heal any and everything in our body. If it's not, something is blocking the flow, and that's all there is. Something is blocking it. We're going to understand a very big part of what's causing that and see that it's in our hands to change it. Not that it will be, it's a simple process, easy is mindset, but we can recover from it. Now, the human capacity to regenerate, this is clearly validated in all the scientific literature. Sciences like psychoneuroimmunology, epigenetics, quantum biology, quantum physics, and even spirituality points to this miracle within us, if you want to call it that, this capacity within us. If we were to look at the most major, for those who are familiar with biblical accounts, the most major of the healings that Jesus would have done, whether it be the woman with the issue of blood, the lepers, the blind Bartimaeus, all of them, it was of your healing, your faith has made you whole. Your faith has made you well. Your faith has healed you. Jesus was saying that the catalyst that ignited this came from you. It points to that. Within us, we carry a power that works in us. It's a creative potential that's remaking us. It heals, it regenerates. It's the very life within us, which is our spiritual nature. That flows. That is what animates our body. That's what gives it life. When that is flowing free and it's in harmony, that's where spontaneous healing and things just disappear. If we're not getting well, something is blocking it, and we're going to see what that is. But for us to understand, healing is really by design. It is the sacred wisdom of our unified being. It is wholeness. And our whole being is affected, not just by what we eat and drink. It's how we think. It's what we believe. It's how we interact with one another. It is our whole life together. So just to get a deeper understanding, a clearer perspective on how this works so that we can begin to tap in it, the natural flow of life flows from inside out. Our essential nature, which is spiritual, and again, I'm talking about a part of our makeup that allows us to be able to connect to a dimension of reality that is beyond what is observable. It's a part of us that allows us to connect to deeper truths of life, and it is our essential nature. We all possess it, we all have it, and it is what is actually animating our lives right now. It flows from inside out, from spirit to soul to body. When this is in order, the body doesn't get sick. If it is sick, it will recover. That is, in essence, what spontaneous remissions or spontaneous healing is. When our clarity of purpose and power potential, it comes from here. And I'm saying this for us to understand that if we are going to create the lives we truly desire, this is what must define our sense of identity, our sense of awareness of who we are. When it comes from here, our spiritual nature, and when I say spiritual nature, again, understand we're talking about divine design. As spiritual beings, we are designed to resonate in harmony with truth, love, and its extended qualities: love, peace, joy, gratitude, etc. Do not think at this point, to understand this, do not think of these things as emotional states per se, as much as they are energetic frequencies. Because in the scale of science, all of these motions, all of these emotions carry a frequency, an energetic frequency that coincides with balance, harmony, unity, oneness, wholeness, integrity, collaboration. It unifies. These are all frequencies that resemble it, how the entire cosmos functions. And this is the essence of who we are. In other words, we are designed to live according to these qualities. And when the soul, our sense of identity, aligns with that, there is harmony, and that harmony passes all the way through, creating homeostasis and so on. This is the natural creative order of life. When we learn to live this way, it takes a whole lot less to get a whole lot more to happen in our lives. And this is a principle that when we unfold this through our workshops, it becomes clearer of how we can tap into this. However, the soul, which is at the center of our being, this is where we navigate life. This is where our perceptions, our beliefs, our understanding, this is where we engage with the outer reality of life. This is we must be before we could do. And our sense of being, this is happening right here. Our sense of identity. This is our mind, thoughts, heart, emotions, and our will, the choices. This is how we navigate our external world of reality. When our soul, when thoughts, emotions, and choices clash with spiritual qualities, it creates a tension right here in the soul because it's against the natural flow of order. What would create that type of a tension? When we lack awareness of our true nature, and we all come into this world and we are enculturated and taught and societally conditioned in ways where we are not aware of our true nature. And when we are not, doing replaces being. Doing becomes the driving force of our life. And it shapes our sense of identity here. No longer comes from the inside, it comes from the outside. It comes from societal conditioning. And so our sense of identity for all of us on the planet, which is why we have such a global pandemic, our sense of identity is rooted in our physical nature, our physical senses that binds us and hardwires us into the external reality. And so, but when our sense of identity is against the natural flow, life becomes harder. Life is more of a struggle. It takes more to get less done. When it flows from the inside out, it takes a whole lot less to get a whole lot more done. And so it's like going against a river. You're going against the current, and there's a resistance. Life is always going to be a struggle. But when our sense of identity comes from the outside in through societal conditioning, our identity, it becomes performance. It becomes achievements, appearance. We need to have external validation. Our sense of worth and value is by the material gains, etc. We have a different set of standards and values, and it's contrary to our inner values of the true essence of our being. And that creates a tension right here in the very center of our being. This is our creative center. This is where we can create the reality we so desire. This is where we can create the lives that we want. But a tension happens right here because we're going against the flow. When our soul, whatever conditions our soul, is what will flow out of it. And once our sense of identity comes from the outside in, we lose sense of awareness. And this is the case where it is, as I work with people in this regard all the time, we acknowledge that there's a spiritual component to our lives, but we have no conceptual understanding and awareness of what that is, that it can be appropriated into functional reality of living. But when it flows from the inside out, it creates an inner conflict. That inner conflict is between the outside and the inside, the values that we learn from our external reality, and the values that are consistent with our true essence of being. And right here, this is the bridge between the two. This is the bridge that has to be crossed. This is the bridge that has to be repaired if we are going to really live, not just live the lives we want, but be able to overcome any illness in our bodies. This is where that healing potential flows. So when our identity is locked up here and our spiritual essence become obscured, that resistance against the flow creates something we call stress. This is what stress is. Stress is that inner tension that we feel that arises when cultural or societal condition conflict with spiritual values. Again, when I just say the word spiritual, our mind is going to default to religious concepts. Don't think of it in that way. It's functional based on qualities that are energetic with harmony and balance. And when there's a divergence between these two, it creates this thing called stress. This is where stress comes from. And we need to understand this because stress is the number one cause of disease and dysfunction on this planet. The World Health Organization and other global bodies said that 60 to 80% of people in modern societies live in a chronic or recurring state of stress. This is the issue is that it is chronic, it's long term, and it's constantly recurring. Stress in itself is not the culprit in that we are designed to handle stress. Our bodies can handle stress and it has mechanisms for that. But when it is chronic and recurring, that's where the problem is. The Center for Disease Control says that 90% of doctor visits are stress related. Stress is the basic cause of 75 to 90% of all human illness and disease. Over 90% of disease is caused by stress, thoughts, and beliefs. And chronic stress increases the odds of developing mild cognitive impairment by 87% and Alzheimer's disease by 145%. There is no wonder why Alzheimer's disease is now beginning to catch up and overtake cancer on the planet. Mental decline and cognitive decline is becoming a rampant thing across the planet. Growing up, you never heard about it, and that's because life is becoming more stressful, quote unquote. But we think because we don't understand the nature of stress, we are now beginning to treat stress, like it is another disease to be controlled and to be managed and to be treated. That's again because we have an outside in perspective. We look at life and we perceive reality externally and not internally. And when that is our perspective, our approach will always be one that require, not only will it be deficient, but it will always require tons load more effort to see the results of it. But stress, we need to understand this because it is the number one when it comes to sickness, disease, and of the body. This is the culprit. We need to understand how this translates into that, and I'll explain that to you. But first, we have to understand that this inner conflict that we have within ourselves, this is the hidden root of stress. And I'm just going to outline a few points that which we all can relate with. And it's worth considering and thinking about and contemplating and learning the rudiments of how to rise above it because it will significantly alter the quality of our lives and the standard of our living. We can all relate to this inner conflict. It's things like secretly experiencing life one way but openly pretending it's another. It's projecting a positive self-image yet concerned about people's opinions about us. It's saying we value the truth, yet not be honest with ourselves or others. It's wanting to be significant while defining ourselves by past struggles. It is desiring inner confidence, yet wanting others to affirm our value. Getting offended when people say things about us, not having that inner sense of worth. It's wanting to be healthy, yet choosing habits that contradict wellness. It's when there are inconsistencies between our intentions and our actions. It's thinking or feeling one way, yet saying or doing another. We all live in these ways. It is when our outer circumstances define our inner well-being. I can't have a good day. I can't feel good about myself. The world is not a wonderful place to live in unless everything around me is working fine. The time that outer circumstances are not going the way I prefer, my world turns upside down. These are all signs of the inner conflict that's going on in us, and this is the root of what creates stress. When we live this way, friends, it is impossible to avoid what we call stress because we are so conditioned into it. Our brains have been wired this way that we just reflexively respond this way. Someone says something that we don't like, we don't have to consciously say, well, you know what, I think I'm going to get offended by it. We just get offended. It's hardwired into us because of conditioning. But here's something that we also need to note is that the emotions, stress is the emotional content from the way we think, our thinking patterns, and how we perceive the reality of the world around us, and that is based on whether it's inside or out. But our emotions is our gauge. Just like a thermometer measures the temperature of the body, our emotions, which is what we feel in stress response, that is our gauge as to whether the flow is inside out or outside in. When the flow is inside out, there is always peace, unshakable peace, despite what's happening. There is joy, there is compassion, there is a positive outlook on life. Life is always good, despite circumstances. When the flow is inverted, we'll know our emotions is our gauge. When we are frustrated and anxious and fearful, when there's resentment and shame and guilt and worries and these anxieties, we know that the flow is against the grain. And once we're in that place, it's impossible to avoid illness. And it's impossible for that healing flow that naturally resides within us for it to flow. So stress doesn't come from the circumstances that life presents us. It's not the traffic, it's not the income, it's not the bills, it's not the boss, it's not the people that you can't get along. It's not outside. It is how we perceive and react to them, and it's shaped by our internal framework of mindsets rooted in an unstable sense of self. I'm giving us here the solution of how we can radically transform our lives and up-level it in ways that we may not even think is possible. Life is always perceived through the lens of our inner state. When thoughts, emotions, words, and actions align as one seamless frequency, living now becomes authentic. Peace, freedom, and the end of stress will follow. And that unlocks wholeness. That unlocks the natural resident power in us, not just for our bodies to heal, but that very alignment unlocks the potential for us to create whatsoever life we desire. That's for another time. So we have looked at understanding health in a different context, what lies at the very root of this. Now, how does this translate into disease in the body? Let me show you now how that translates and then how we can fix it, or options for that. The central nervous system is how we experience life. If we had a switch and we could switch off the central nervous system, we could be alive, but we would have no experience of life. We would be like walking dead, comatose, no experience. The central nervous system is the brain and the entire network of nerves throughout the body. This is the bridge between mind, which is unseen, and body, which is seen. This is the bridge between it. So let's understand how this works. The central nervous system extends into what is called the autonomic nervous system. Don't get tied up with any technicalities. It's very simple. The autonomic nervous system controls all functions in our bodies, and it has two branches to it. The first one is called the sympathetic nervous system, and this deals with stress response. You can remember this this one begins with S, sympathetic, and S is for stress. When the SNS, which is our fight, flight, freeze response, when that is activated, and is activated by chronic stress. Chronic stress is an unstable sense of self when it expresses itself as what? Negative emotions, fear, anxiety, worry, resentment, frustration, hate, anger, that is stress response. Science, all the literature tells us that chronic stress promotes oxidation and systemic inflammation, which is the root cause of chronic lifestyle diseases, gut dysfunction, DNA damage, premature aging, chronic stress. Not stress, not being upset now or being angry another time. It is the constancy. It is the continuous way of life. So think of it this way. If you took a pen, which is a relatively light object, and you started to tap your finger with it, It wouldn't feel like anything much as you tapped your finger. But keep tapping your finger and an hour passes, you now start to feel it where you didn't feel it in the first 2 minutes. Let a week pass of tapping it. Now your finger is swollen. It is very painful and you're beginning to damage the vessels under the skin. Once it is the chronic stress that creates cumulative imbalances within our bodies. But chronic stress, the primary stress hormone, which we know is cortisol, creates the inflammation. Inflammation is the seedbed that all disease grows in. There is no disease that develops in the body without inflammation. And so we have this chronic oxidation and inflammation happening all the time. And this is what leads, this is all in the scientific literature. And so it's all about anti-inflammatories, how to stop inflammation, how to stop oxidation, which is what leads to inflammation. They don't even really get into that in medicine either. So it's all symptom control. It's all disease management. It's not restoration. And again, our approach is because of how we understand it. But chronic stress activates the sympathetic nervous system, which engages a whole process that leads the sympathetic nervous system. Once that's dominant, we're going to have a lot of inflammation, oxidation, and a cascade that leads us down a road to disease. That's one of the two branches. The second branch is the parasympathetic nervous system, the PNS. This one is the opposite. This is peace, P for peace. This is the one that deals with healing and recovery. So these two branches, when life flows from the outside in, we're going to be sympathetic dominant. When life flows from the inside out, we're always going to be parasympathetic dominant. The two sides of the autonomic nervous system goes along with our states of being, whether life's flowing from the inside or the outside. Are you following? So the PNS, this deals with rest and restoration. This is activated when there is coherence and balance between the mind and body. This activates when there is inner peace and authenticity, when there's harmony, balance. This restores that homeostasis, the mind-body integration as one. It optimizes immune function, whereas the sympathetic dominance depresses immune function. Cellular repair and synchronized coordination of all biological systems. This is where the body heals and repairs very naturally. Our bodies are wired this way. We are wired to continuously heal and repair anything that goes out of, that becomes defective. It's wired into us. But it's which system is dominant. Now we can know and we can measure this because the regulatory state of the central nervous system can be observed through brainwave activity. So when we hook up an EEG headset and we are looking at the electrical activity of the brain, the electrical activity of the brain measures the functions that's going on in the brain and it's relative to our state of mind. So get that. The brainwave activity is a reflection of our state of mind and by extension, our state of being. This is measurable. Now, when our inner state is influenced by negative thoughts and emotions, fear, worry, etc., brainwave activity shifts the body into sympathetic dominance. That's the stress response. And it starts a cascade of imbalances and deficiencies in functionality that layers and layers upon itself, and eventually it becomes an illness. And we'll notice it, and it's a gradual, it starts with something as simple as, I don't have as much energy as I used to have. That's the first sign of that imbalance, is when we start to lose energy and vitality, and that cascades down. On the other hand, when our inner state is one of harmony, influenced by positive mindsets, positive dispositions, positive thoughts and emotions, the brainwave activity, when we measure it, is more coherent and it shifts the body into parasympathetic dominance. Now, I'm showing us now how understanding our sense of self and who we are and being in the natural creative order of the flow of our true essence of being is what makes the difference to how our body is responding, to how we are interpreting and responding to life that leads to either healing or disease. So we understand from this, which is all measurable, this is all science, and the literature is all there. We want to be able to have parasympathetic dominance. That means we need to be able to live in such a way where our sense of self and our sense of being is defined by the frequencies of spirit, love, because all thoughts and emotions, all these brain waves are all frequencies. Brainwave activity are all measuring frequencies. When the frequency of anger, which is a low grade frequency, as opposed to love, which is a high grade frequency, it changes how our body responds, our state of mind, and our state of being. So, what we need to understand now is that disease really doesn't happen to us. We are not victims of disease, we cultivate it. Disease evolves through us, it doesn't happen to us. We are not victims of life, period. We create our realities whether we do know it or not. By default, sometimes we tap into the right side of it unintentionally. But the condition of our bodies is determined entirely by the spiritual life that animates it, how much of it or how little of it is flowing through and enlivening every cell of our body. This is the long and the short of it. So, to conclude with that is to unlock this natural flow of healing, we want to engage more self-care than healthcare. Healthcare has its place. Healthcare is needed. I mean, with the healthcare system, it will save our life. It will not keep us healthy. It has a place and it has a need and a use in our lives. But the responsibility is on us by stepping back, gaining a new perspective on who we are, what we possess, and what our capacities and capabilities are. And so, if we can harmonize our thoughts, emotions, words, and actions to be one and the same, this is alignment. This dissolves that inner conflict. It harmonizes our brainwave activity, restoring that natural balance between mind and body, and upregulating parasympathetic dominance. And our body is always in healing and recovery. This is the equation right here. This is scientifically validated. It is philosophically validated. It is spiritually validated on every level. Now, how do we to harmonize, to have our thoughts, emotions, words, and actions to be one and the same is a tall order. It requires engaging practices on a daily basis of meditation, prayerfulness, mindfulness, and metacognitive exercises, breath work, and different techniques that we can use. And the science all shows that how these things harmonize and synchronize brainwave activity, shifts the body more into states of balance, and influences more and more efficient biological functions. All this is scientifically validated. But people that I work with, they find it difficult to be able to invest the time and the consistency to get the know-how and the practice of being able to bring their state of being into balance. And believe me, it's not as difficult as it sounds when we get the right perspective. And that comes again in the workshops. But what if there was a way that we can synchronize our brainwave activity to resemble a mind that is in balance and in order? What do you think would happen? Well, what would happen is that if our brainwave activity resembled a mind in functional order, the natural thing that will happen is that the body will start to just naturally improve its function, and the whole healing process will naturally begin to happen if we can do that. Because people find it difficult to engage the process. What if there is a way that we can do it? What would it mean? It would mean not just a better functioning body, but it will mean that harnessing our inner capacity to renew our minds, which requires rewiring our brains. It means that that process also becomes more accessible. What I'm telling you here is life changing. What I'm going to tell you now and bring to a conclusion is a technology that does exactly that. Take a breath and just think about what I just said, because what I'm going to tell you about has never existed before on this planet. It does not exist outside of what I'm going to tell you, and nothing on the planet works like it for restoring physical functionality in our bodies and enhancing mental function. Nothing on the planet works like it. So it is not to be perceived as another form of therapy or medicine, because it isn't. It has no medicines, no ingredients, no substances of any type. It has no external frequencies, and there's no equipment about this technology. But this technology taps into, this thing is so profound, it taps into that innate intelligence that's woven into the human design and enhances it. It synchronizes brainwave activity to resemble a state of being that is in balance, and the body starts to respond to it. And it starts to respond instantly. That is mind blowing. This technology was developed by this man. He's called Jay Dhaliwal. He's the founder of a biotech company, which he calls the Super Patch Company. He made a statement that is very profound as well. He wants to build something generational that will transform the world. Well, to transform the world, which is a huge vision, it has to be generational, because you can't do that in a generation. It has to be something that's going to be generational. But to have that impact, it has to be able to make a significant impact in society and human well-being. And because it's tapping into the very essence of who we are and what enlivens us, it has the capacity to do that. When I first came across this technology and I started to try it, myself and my wife, after now several months of it, almost a year of using it, it is nothing short of, I can tell you without any reservation, 25 years of clinical practice, I've not come across anything that has this impact on human well-being, physically and holistically, as this technology. What is this technology that has no medicine, no ingredients, no frequent that impacts and interfaces with the very human design and the human intelligence that runs our body? What is this technology? I'm going to show you a short 2-minute video where Mr. Dhaliwal, using EEG headsets and measuring brainwave activity, just does a demonstration to illustrate how it works. Then I'm going to just explain that to you, show you what's available, and we'll bring it to a conclusion. It's called vibrotactile trigger technology.
Hi everyone, I'm Jay Dhaliwal. I'm the CEO and founder of Vox Life and the creator of Vox Life HPT. Today, I want to talk to you about a Harmony Neuro Patch. And what this product does is actually stimulates receptors on our skin, sending a neurosignal to our brain to help it reach homeostasis. This is the only product in the world that relies on the neurohaptic system that every single one of us has to optimize our neurology and optimize our health. Today, with the help of Dr. Mark DeBrinket, our VP of Clinical Strategy, we're going to be using an FDA-cleared 19-channel EEG headset, as well as FDA-cleared software to visualize, record, and show the impact that our technology has on our neurology and our brains to help it reach optimal performance. What we want to show today is how the Harmony Neuro Patch helps that dysregulated yellow, blue, and red colors in the brain maps transform into that healthy green homeostasis neurology that is the foundation of health and wellness. So what we're looking at right now is a neurological QEEG output of Mike's limbic system. The 19 channels are reading over 60,000 brainwaves a second and generating an output of neurofunction and brainwaves. What we want to see now is where that suboptimal red and yellow colors are, we want to see them turning as much as possible to a healthy green with the application of our HPT patch. So we've applied the patch now to Mike's arm, and within 10 seconds, you're seeing that predominant yellow and red become predominantly green. Just for clarification, ladies and gentlemen, there's nothing in the world that has this output at this rate of speed without drugs, without chemicals, without electricity. That's the power of Vox HPT. So when we see a healthy green neurology, what we're looking at is a brain and a mind in homeostasis. It is operating in its optimal function. And this is so important. And this is why it's so important. So VoxLife HPT, as we demonstrated with our neuro patch, helps the central nervous system reach homeostasis in our neurology. And the reason this is so important for overall wellness and health is that neurology is the top of the pyramid of our physiological health and wellness paradigm. First is neurology at the very top, then there's chemistry, then there's biology, then there's physics and mechanics. Neurology will have an impact all the way through our entire physiology. Healthy neurology, healthy body, better wellness.
So the demonstration that Jay did there, when you, those of whoever may be familiar, and if you're not, you could always look it up and see that yellow and red brain, when you do brain scans, is always indicative of a restless, incoherent mind, which is the way it is for the majority of us. When he says it brings the brain into coherence and balance, into homeostasis, it's bringing the hemispheres of the brain and the different areas of the brain into harmony and orderly balance. Now, for the average human being to even attain or achieve that, you would have to be like a monk that's been meditating in a monastery for years to have that type of mental control. But here it is that was just applying a patch that has nothing on it except a pattern. I'll explain that in a minute. That sends a signal to our brain that brings our brain into homeostasis. What that means is that once that is maintained over time, the brain, through its phenomenon called neuroplasticity, which is how the brain reorganizes and rebalances itself and rewires itself, as that happens over time of consistent use, the body's functions become increasingly more and more coordinated, and our physiology becomes increasingly enhanced. This is this is removing the interference that comes from negative frequencies that garbles coherent brain waves. Negative frequencies of distress response. It subsides all of that, and the body just starts to function better. And it happens in a matter of seconds when you do that. So when we understand that the reflection of the brainwave activity is a reflection of our state of mind. And based on the nature of that, which is whether it is a stress response, negative thought patterns or emotional states, or positive, will determine whether the sympathetic or parasympathetic dominance will take over. And so when we can bring our brain waves into coherent function to resemble a state of being or a state of mind that's in order, the body naturally responds in a positive way because it releases that inherent flow. It releases the blockages of that energy that has been hindering the natural healing power that resides within us. The technology is based on research, the Nobel Prize research. And basically, to just simplify it, the first aspect of it is they discovered many years ago that every cell in the body is a transceiver. It receives and transmits electromagnetic frequencies. That's a given. We all know that in quantum biology. And then in more recent times, the Nobel Prize was given to two Nobel laureates who discovered what is called piezoelectric channels. These are ionic channels that are embedded in the skin. And these channels, they can detect the sensory vibration of texture and temperature. Anything that touches the skin sends a signal to the brain. And an easy way to understand how the patches work is if you think about a QR code. This QR code is a QR code for one of my websites. You wouldn't know that by looking at it, but if you put a camera on it, the camera scans the QR code and converts the visual patterns of the data into a digital signal, and it unlocks the information that's hidden in that pattern. We don't understand how that works, how it translates a visual pattern into a digital signal, but that is what happens. In a very similar way, Superpatch is just tactile patterns embedded on medical grade um, material. And the piezoelectric channels, very similar to the camera, it scans the pattern on our skin and it sends from the patch, and it sends a signal to the brain, converting that stimuli into a biological signal. What happens is that the signal that goes to the brain, it is naturally integrated into the brainwave activity to streamline it. Each patch, there are various patches which will have various patterns. Each pattern corresponds to different neural networks. So if the pattern is for the neural network that deals with, let's say, how the body manages pain, and you put the patch on, it sends a signal. And if that area of the brainwave activities that's happening in that area is out of order, it streamlines, coordinates it, synchronizes it, and now the body is able to manage pain a lot better. So whether it be pain, it's sleep or stress, strength, but various things that we may have going on in our bodies, each patch has a tactile pattern that sends a signal to the brain. It integrates with our brainwave activity to synchronize that particular area according to the patch. This is 15 years of research and development that vibrotactile technology is now peer-reviewed and published research. The International Journal of Family Medicine and Healthcare, the International Journal of Research in Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation, and other prestigious medical journals, this is now posted in. The technology last year, some of the major symposiums around the world where the greatest of medical minds come together for the advancement of healthcare, the World Congress of Pain, the European Sleep Society, the World Congress of Psychiatry. Superpatch has been invited to present this groundbreaking technology and how it works. And nobody has ever seen a technology that invites nothing into the body, but just using your own built-in technology that's into your skin sends a signal to your brain to repair disrupted neural networks because of stress response, releasing the flow of the energy. It is the most natural thing that we can think of and has the most profound impact on physiological function. And it happens very quickly. So this is clinically proven to enhance mind-body communication when the mind and body are harmonized through brainwave synchronization. The brain becomes more orderly and biological systems become more coordinated. This reestablishes homeostasis and that releases that healing response. It optimizes the body's ability to heal and repair itself. This is not like, you got to step back and think about this because our minds will default to what we have been conditioned to. This is not like how anything else works within the healthcare industry. This is a new paradigm of wellness. This is a new era of wellness that is being introduced to the world with a new technology, but it's so simple. And so the company so far has developed 13 different patterns that corresponds with 13 different neural pathways or networks in the brain to harmonize them and bring the body and mind into balance. This is phenomenal in that it's not just improving physiological function, which is naturally what's going to happen when the brainwave activity becomes coordinated. But what it does, it helps us to be able to harness better mentality, meaning we'll find that we have our thinking becomes clearer, our decision making becomes more astute. We find that our response to life, with as the brain rewires itself to these new balances, we find that our disposition begins to change. People are finding that they're no longer responding to stress the way they might have responded to, or their whole temperament, because the brain is now functioning more orderly. What does this mean? This means that the people that I've worked with in the past who say to me, I can't sit for any length of time to meditate because my mind is all over the place and it seems impossible to quiet it down. When you put on a couple of these patches, not only your body starts to improve its function, but people are finding that my mind is not as restless. It's there's more ease. This is life transforming. And so these are mind body solutions that everybody needs. People are becoming more and more tired of the drug interactions. This is no drugs, no chemicals, no ingredients. This is using this is harnessing the built in technology that already resides within the human body, which is the greatest technology on the planet and that has the greatest healing potential. It's already residing within us. This just taps into it and releases it. That is profoundly powerful. And it's all backed by research, proven by science. It's FDA registered, and it addresses some of the most common needs we all have. It's effective. It works very quickly. There are no contraindications, so it doesn't matter if you have what medications you're taking. It doesn't matter if you have a pacemaker in. It doesn't matter any implants you have in. None of that matters. There's no negative. There's no allergic responses. So it's completely safe, non-invasive, easy to use, even children. You have a child that has a flu, you can put on the one for the immune system onto a child that's 3 years old, and it's completely safe. There's nothing that I've come across like this that has this potential, this impact, and this power to help the human system. So if we can bring mind-body harmony, the key to homeostasis, this unlocks the resident potential that resides in all of us. And so we want to maintain optimal neurology. We want to be able to we want to renew our minds, which essentially means rewiring our brains. And this is one of the most effective tools that I've come across that to help us to rewire our brains in ways that where we can unlock the potential that resides within us. What I'm aiming at in my own life and why I have adopted this to be part of my work with whole living is because it helps us to be able to turn around the boat rather than paddling upstream against the natural flow of life, rather than paddling upstream and making life a struggle. This helps us to turn the boat around and go with the flow because it helps us to be able to tap in to our greatest potential, which is in our minds. It helps us to be able to tap that. This is phenomenal. And the company right now has 5 other patches that's in research and development, which are absolutely phenomenal and beyond where regenerative medicine is even thinking of in the future right now. So this company is really, and this is a wonderful tool to use. And so it's so far all that we've laid out for you about harnessing your life and your well-being through understanding health in a broader context. Here is a tool that can help us to be able to harness that and maximize that. Just to run through very quickly some of the patches, these are the indications. This is what the research, the science, and the clinical studies have revealed with this. And this is the patch that Jay demonstrated. It's called the Liberty patch. You can check your grip strength with a meter. You can check your dynamic balance, how much force it takes to throw you off of balance, and you can put on the Liberty patch, and within a matter of seconds, it increases your strength and your stability, your range of motion in a matter of seconds. This taps in to the how it coordinates your biological system, and it actually reduces our biological aging. If this was all the company had, just this one patch, this would be worth it. It brings the whole brain into coordination. The defend patch, if you want to upregulate your immune system, I mean supercharge your immune system for healing and response and recovery, this patch is an excellent way to do that. Pain, a lot of people deal with pain. Pain can reduce our quality of living and so on. This, without any ingredients, without any toxic ingredients that your liver has to deal with, this reduces pain and it works relatively quickly. Athletic performance, this is perhaps one of the hottest patches that the company have because Um, about half of the NFL teams in the United States are now using this victory patch. The scientific advisory board are now going into the sports arena, and because of the clinical studies that's been done on this, I use this when I go to the gym, and I can tell you, this is not the type of thing that you have to wear it for a period of time for it to work into your system. You can walk into the gym right now, stick it on onto your skin, and start your workout. And right away, your power, your strength, your performance up levels in seconds, and you can feel the difference. Now, those of you who are into athletics and sports, you know that no pro athletic team like NFL and NBAs will accept anything like this unless it's properly vetted. And we're now, Super Patch is now going into those arenas because this is all scientifically validated and now it's being tested. And so we're going to hear about this in the near future of the difference that this is making, not just in America, but around the world. It's going into the pro athletic field. This victory patch is absolutely. The boost patch is one for energy. You don't need energy drinks, which are toxic to your brain, toxic to your liver, toxic to your kidneys, toxic to your bloodstream. This is 24 hours of energy on demand without the jitters, without the crashes, and this is just clean energy. You want to get off those extra pounds. You're not able to get the calorie burns that you're liking. Maybe your schedule prohibits that. You'll get 25% more calorie burns with this, 300 to 500 more calories a day while you're at rest. Healthy complexion. This patch has made a difference with my wife and with other people in terms of what it's doing for their skin. Um, all this information is available on the website. The clinical studies are on the website. You can see it, it's all there. For us men who tend to have, we tend to become less efficient in our masculine performance as we get older. This will help us to reclaim that virility with better masculine performance. But the number one cornerstone of health, of maintaining physical well-being, is proper sleep. Most people don't get REM sleep. We may not be aware of it, but this patch puts us into that REM sleep where our body heals and repairs itself, where the brain repairs itself during REM sleep. This helps us to get there. The peace patch is one of my favorite patches. You're talking about you feeling stressed, anxious, you're feeling that you can't cope. When you put the peace patch on, in a matter of moments, you're going to start to feel calm and feel centered. It balances the autonomic nervous system. This has such far-reaching implications for for our biology that it is absolutely amazing what this does. Enhanced focus and concentration, mental clarity. The focus patch is great for that. You're feeling depressed, you're in a low mood, you're feeling down, you put on the joy patch. It stimulates the limbic system of the brain and it helps to lift us out and give us more positive mood. If you're struggling with addictions, not just substance addictions, but it could be food addictions, it could be addictions to mental thought patterns. People chronically, they reflexes worry, overthink, and they can't seem to control that. This all helps us to be able to get past those habits. And then when you combine the patches in various ways, you enhance and broaden their capacity to how they impact our lives. And so when we get the our brains in balance and we get the brain's rhythm flowing in harmony, it it upregulates how we function physically and mentally in ways that many people are not even accustomed to. And so it's very easy to use. You just simply peel it on, stick it on. It goes on anywhere on your body. It doesn't matter where you put it, from under your feet all the way up. Of course, you just don't want it to be on any scars where the nerves in your skin might have been severed, or any very hairy areas of your body, which can skew the pattern when it goes onto your skin. But they're very safe, tested. Each patch is effective for 24 hours. The scientific advisory board is what connects us into real world activity. They're part of who is getting the patch into pro athletic teams and in other um, demographics around the world. They work with the research and development to make sure that everything is in compliance and everything is ordered. This is, I really am impressed with the company and what they've produced and the way how they go about maintaining everything in terms of compliance and integrity. And so if you want to enhance your well-being, and I'm not just talking physically, your overall well-being, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I've given you a pathway and a process. I've given you a tool that can support bridging that journey, that can help us to live a quality of life and a standard of living, that we can engage that responsibility from a different vantage point. And so here's your opportunity to get aligned and release that power to be well on the inside. We have a Facebook page that has thousands of testimonies of people around the world whose lives are being impacted by this self-care solution. And it's tailored for you, by you. You put it on your body, your body's own intelligence based on your needs, based on your own capacity, based on your own neurology, based on your own DNA. Your body determines how it's going to work with you. You can never get more customized or more natural than this. Um, and so I'm going to conclude with this, and I want to thank you for taking the time to be here. If you have, we have a session on Monday, if you happen to be available, where we would, people that may have maybe specific questions, we can look at that. But on Monday, I'm going to be talking about a different aspect of what the company Superpatch is doing in terms of engaging in Jay's vision to impact the world with this technology. I have joined his vision to do that because I have found, one, it complements my work so well, and two, I have not come across anything that has such a positive impact on human well-being, physically and mentally and emotionally, like this technology has. And so there is an opportunity where we can look at engaging our whole life by becoming part of the business community that Superpatch offers. I want to say that there's the principle of financial growth, which is part of the inside out flow of life, that when we learn how to do more with less, we will require less to do more. That is a principle, that's a spiritual principle of life, and a spiritual principle of financial growth. The economic model that this company offers is a very environment where this principle will operate. And so if we want to engage in healthy lifestyles with financial empowerment, looking at this model, I invite you to be on the call tomorrow evening at 6:30. If you're interested, you can request the link. If you were invited by one of our partners, if you saw my post on Facebook, however you may want it, if you want a copy of this evening's presentation, if you want the link for tomorrow evening, reach out to me, reach out to any of our partners that might have invited you onto the call, and you can get the link for tomorrow evening. It's worth exploring. It may or it may not be for you to look at, but I'll tell you, when our financial empowerment is low, you can bet it's going to have a significant impact on our overall well-being. And we want to be able to harness both. What Superpatch is offering in this global business community is unparalleled to anything that I've experienced in it. And so I can invite you to consider that. And so with that, I'm going to bring this evening's presentation to a conclusion and say thank you very much for taking the time and the effort to be on with us. I certainly enjoyed sharing the information with you. There's always lots more that could have been said in what we did, but what needed to be heard was heard this evening. And I just want to say thank you. This is part of my passion in being able to impact people's lives positively. And I want to believe that I gave you something this evening that will help you on your journey, your own personal journey of life and improvement, that's going to make a positive difference. And so with that, I'm going to say thank you very much for being here. May God bless each and every one of you, and have a wonderful week ahead of you. Good night.